Okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hey guys, and happy Monday. We are here to do some art on the Super Gross page, but we're mostly not going to look at the Super Gross stuff because I don't like it.
Yep, the battle begins.
Yes. And so we're going to mostly just be working on this ridiculously difficult angle of narrative I've set up for myself. I hope everybody has had a good 2 weeks and enjoyed the last update. And as always, if you guys want to support us on a personal level or you enjoy our streams or our content, you can donate to our PayPal or you can become a patron and get sweet pins in the mail and other cool stuff. And that's completely wrong. But yeah, so here we are again for another bout of conversation and art. And give me 1 second because I think I drew Narada's armor wrong.
Yeah, so we've tried to show that clothing gets dirty and armor gets torn and, but so far, it should be pretty good still.
Except for poor Cheshire's boots and pants.
Well, she is so small.
Poor Cheshire's boots and pants.
Nerida is so large that, her armor probably just doesn't even get in the muck at all. But Cheshire's, their stuff is just soaked.
Yep, and they are at serious risk of trench foot, I realized, because they're also, the only person who didn't... I apologize for the leaf blower sounds if you guys can hear those, but they're the only person who didn't, take off their boots and socks and everything at camp, and actually they sat away from the fire, and Nerida, is just barefoot, so that's not a problem for her.
It's a really weird thing, but I don't know why, but the line that stuck out to me most from Forrest Gump is when Lieutenant Dan says, the most important thing you need to know about surviving Vietnam is change your socks.
I mean, yeah.
But that line has stuck with me my entire life.
I have never seen Forrest Gump.
It's a good movie.
My brother was obsessed with it, for about 6 months, really unhealthily obsessed with it. And the bits and pieces that I saw just drove me nuts. And he would just get, super high and watch Forrest Gump on repeat.
Interesting.
Right? So I just never went back and watched it for myself, I guess. But I know, enough about it to get all the references usually that are made towards it.
My brother and I watched Princess Bride 40 times one summer over the course of the summer, but yeah, we didn't get high and watch it.
Princess Bride is delightful.
Also, it's a delightful movie.
Yes. Yeah, I actually have missed out on a lot of what are considered to be classics. I'm doing the wrong thing.
Wow, they have been leaf blowing so long.
I know. We've been here for an hour, and the leaf blower guys are still here, outside of the office, and it's there's not that many leaves, guys. There are no trees in the parking lots.
Right?
But what is happening is that what they're actually supposed to be doing is picking up garbage, but they don't want to do that because there's lots of nasty garbage because there's a restaurant next door and people keep throwing cigarette butts in the gardens and stuff, and so they just leaf blow everything, and just pick up all the garbage that way, I guess. Because there is one dude out there collecting the big garbage, but everything else they just hit with the leaf blower.
There's so few leaves. They're just blowing them around
into the nearest storm drain, which is offensive on so many levels. But there is only so much I can do.
I know, we just want them to leave us alone.
We'll see ourselves out when the stream is over, don't worry. I drew Darren's armor wrong again. I always get the stitching and the pattern at the top messed up because it's changed from the original design that I had, which actually did not have sleeves. And then I changed it again and again and again, and so now I keep messing it up. And it probably is going to just look different on every page, but you know what? I am not a robot, and so...
I mean, consistency is king. We've talked about that a lot, but I don't know that 100% consistency is possible except from a robot. And as long as it's majorly consistent, as long as the armor's not moving around and changing from metal to leather to hide,
what is majorly consistent is People's Fabulous Hair.
Yes. and her armor is mostly consistent.
Yes. I mean,
the majority of it is, and it always looks similar and is recognizable, puts her on brand for herself,
Yeah. Nobody asked you to invade the conversation with your logic. Okay.
Sorry.
I was being an artist, a hypercritical artist of
being
myself.
The business manager over here.
Thanks.
I'll just go see myself into the go make the business make money corner.
Please, like I love you, but I want you to be in the corner so bad because I want food.
Right. But speaking of, just a reminder for everybody, we'll be at TomaCon, November 22nd. Yes. Tell all your friends and go if you feel like it.
We are going to have a special pin just for AtomaCon, and a special 3-inch pin.
Yes. And we'll be running a promotion for people who are not patrons, and so get out there if you are and recommend to your friends to become a patron, and you'll get the special pin of Cheshire. And they will get a promotion during con.
Yes. And the Cheshire pin is super cute, like most things Cheshire. And also, the October pins went out, I believe, last week, so all the patrons should have those now, and I hope everybody enjoys them.
If you don't have it, it should be the next day or two.
Yes. My blood and sweat and tears is upon them, but I actually, I really like how they came out, and so far the response has been mostly positive, so... Well, actually, the response has been 100% positive, but I guess, there could be someone out there who just hasn't responded yet.
I think I saw one person on Twitter who would not like Alex.
Well...
But the 99% of the people in that conversation would have.
Yes. Because, you can be butthurt about cultural appropriation if it's your culture.
Right.
And not if it's not. As a general rule. Unless it's something just, like, grossly inappropriate, and that's fine. But
it is a fine line to walk between cultural sharing and cultural appropriation. But I think the key is respect and, doing it because you think it's great, not because you want to make fun of it.
Correct.
Which, I mean, let's all be honest, blackface was only to make fun of black people.
Right.
Which is why there is no instance in which it is good.
Correct.
But
looking at you, Japan.
Right.
Just like
dressing up as someone else's, like dressing up in a kimono. I know there are lots of Japanese people that hate it, but then there are tons of them making lots of money selling them.
Yep. Well, and you also look at the culture of national pride in Japan is a very strange thing.
It is.
And way more complex than it should be, but maybe not that it should be, but that most Western people are accustomed to.
And the fetishization of the Orient was a real problem, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, and
I mean, they've done it themselves.
I was gonna say, frankly, a lot of it is coming out of Japan now.
Yeah.
If we're gonna be really honest. But yeah, and the thing is that. It is a fine line, but there are people out there who, when Chester Bennington, gosh, God rest him, because I loved him and all of his music. But when Chester Bennington killed himself, there was a massive public response about how it was good that he was dead and that Linkin Park as a band wouldn't go on, because Chester Bennington was white, and so his rapping was cultural appropriation.
Oh, well,
And that
why
made
is Eminem's
me
not in?
right, and that made me so mad, because like, music is for everyone. Fuck you.
Music is for everybody, but I mean, you can, but rap is not considered respectful, but I've heard rap that is extremely culturally respectful.
Yes, we were just listening to the other night "Same Love," which is
Right.
such a wonderful song, and rap may not be a genre that is generally respectful of people or women or what have you, but actually most of Linkin Park's was, and the fact that they were rapping was not disrespectful to any other artist or to any
Right.
culture or person.
Plus, string quartet covers of their stuff is rad.
Yeah. Most covers of their stuff is rad, because most of their stuff was rad.
It was rad, yeah.
Man, I'm not sure I would have survived high school without the angst that was the first 2 Linkin Park albums.
I think that helped a lot of people through high school.
I mean, frankly, I remember this one Thanksgiving. So holidays are a weird thing for my family, because everyone in my family, mostly including myself, super loves holidays, but that creates this like
Excuse me.
this general going overboard. And when we were younger, we didn't get to see my cousins a lot, which, I mean, I didn't really think was a problem, especially when I was in high school and I was an antisocial little shit. But we didn't get to see my cousins, and my mom really missed her siblings because they live states and states away. Well, my stupidly rich aunt owns a log cabin in North Carolina, and we lived in South Carolina, and so for a couple of years they started coordinating holidays at said cabin, and they were all extremely uncomfortable. Okay, so right off the bat, let's just put that out there. These were some of the worst holidays of my life. Because my aunt and uncle who owned the cabin were on the border of a divorce for like 15 years of their marriage, and that was from when I was 5 to when I was like 20. So all they did was scream at each other.
Right.
And also my grandparents were usually there, and my grandmother would make everything worse by taking sides, and my grandfather would just get mad and leave, and my dad would get mad and leave. And my mom would just be really sadly trying to distract way too many children from the fact that my uncle was just screaming at everybody. So they were incredibly uncomfortable, and also all the kids got stuffed in like the cabin loft to sleep in sleeping bags on the floor so that the adults could have the bedrooms. So that sucked in and of itself. But there was this one particular Thanksgiving where I was reading some vampire drama book or whatever, and my uncle decided that he was going to just pick fights with 14-year-old me because that's the cool thing to do, because my cousin tried to pick a fight with me and it didn't work, so he had to back up his son, I guess. I don't know.
That's weird.
Yeah. Oh, they're just really just generally terrible people. But so the whole lot of them were unstable. But anyway, so he decided to pick a fight with me about Circus of the Darned. It was called. It was like a kind of a.
So it wasn't even.
No, it wasn't. It was a parody of the typical teenage vampire drama.
And it wasn't even outrageously offensive to a super religious person.
Oh, no. And my uncle isn't even super religious.
Just wanted to pick a fight.
He just wanted to pick a fight, right. But so there's this book called Circus of the Darned, and so he started asking me questions about it, and I was doing my best to answer them, and like basically everything I said he just made fun of. And so finally I just stared at him, and as he was actively talking to me, I put my headphones on, and at the time I think I had like a portable CD player, like that's how ancient I am, right? And I had Linkin Park's Meteora in it, and so I start playing Linkin Park, and so, but I wasn't playing it super loudly. I was still being kind of respectful. And so then he starts making fun of my music and my attitude and my etc. And so just every time I saw his mouth move, I just turned the volume up until it was like ear-splittingly loud. And then my mom came over and was like, I don't need to hear the music on your headphones. But she finally intervened, and he moved on. But I spent the rest of the night, and this was the best time of the entire Thanksgiving. I spent the rest of the night curled up in this really comfy armchair in this wood cabin. I'm so sorry, guys. I muted one of my phones, but not the other one. But yeah, so curled up in this super comfy armchair, listening to Linkin Park and reading Circus of the Darned, which is a wonderful book, and I highly recommend it. It is definitely young adult reading. It's not gonna wow you or cause you any philosophical debate, but it was quite funny. At least I thought it was quite funny when I was 14. But yeah, so Linkin Park was a super duper important part of my basically whole life, but especially my like formative teen years. And yes, I know that is a mitten and not a hand. I will fix it later, probably.
But I mean, the point is, respect is what makes it different, and
yes,
and respect is, it's not hard to do, you know.
No. Well, you know, I think for some people it is, but
true.
That's just unfortunately their own malfunction. Like, you know, my dad super hates seeing American flags on bikinis. I can understand this, especially because my dad grew up in a generation where, like, if your flag, like, if something happened and it was torn or it hit the ground or whatever, you had to, like, burn it and buy a new one or something like that because it was, like, disrespectful to let the American flag touch the ground.
But now it's on all sorts of clothing
and now you can buy a bikini that has the American flag or God help you the Confederate flag or whatever else.
Pretty much whatever.
You know, and I know that I've seen you know multiple flags from the UK on bikinis. I'm sure somewhere there is a flag of Japan on a bikini, which is really unfortunate because it's just white with a red dot in the middle.
With some rays.
Yes. So, drawing even more attention. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, but that's the thing is like stuff like that is totally disrespectful, but for whatever reason
it makes a lot of money. That's why
accepted.
It's done about it.
Yeah. But you know, because it makes a lot of money, nobody cares about what the whiny people on Tumblr think, I guess. But nobody cares what people on Tumblr think anyway because Tumblr is dead.
Nationalism and culture are getting separated, but
yes,
you don't need to go into that here.
No, we're always like, no, I'm not going to get political on this stream. 10 minutes in, so here's a really political opinion. Well, it's just unfortunate because being a good person, or a decent and respectful person at least, has become a political topic.
Political stands.
You know, and that sucks, but like. You know,
and there are people who try to be oversensitive about it too.
Oh,
you know?
100%. And frankly, being bi and having the friend circle that I do, and then the acquaintance circle that I do, I have met a lot of those people. I have straight up been told by many people that I am clearly hateful towards or against the LGBTQ community because of something I've said, and I'm like, guys, I am a part of that community, and I definitely do support it. But, you know, there are people who will take literally anything you say and find a way to give themselves the moral high ground.
Right.
Like, I literally got called like a white supremacist TERF or something. Just it was so over the top because I said that somebody shouldn't have shared a post that was anti-neo-Nazis. But my reasoning for this was that the post's logic was so bad and stupid and
it undermined the
counterproductive
position.
that it undermined the position. And I even said that. I was like, guys, we can't be sharing stuff that makes people who are anti-Nazi look like idiots, because this is giving power to the people who are neo-Nazis to pull stuff like this that's going viral and say, the people who oppose us are stupid. Look at them.
And then, by implication, that they are smart.
Yes.
But interestingly enough, kind of off topic, but while you were working
go
on
ahead.
stitching,
Get off the
here,
topic of.
I read an interesting thing about stitching on, the modern suit of armor. The stitching on spacesuits, and how the original women who did it had to have accuracy within 1/32 of an inch while stitching through 29 layers of fabric, making no mistakes, because if you made a mistake and had to pull thread out and do it again, you had to start over because you can't have extra holes in a spacesuit.
Wow.
And so I was thinking about that when I was looking at the stitching on Nerida's armor here.
Which is very haphazard, and it's meant to be.
It doesn't matter, because you just have to have enough to hold it together snugly.
Yep.
But I was thinking about that because the amazing accuracy. And the women who did it were apparently, in the article they said this, I haven't verified, so if this isn't true, but I'm pretty sure it is because it was a fairly reputable article.
Actually?
But they were Playtex seamstresses, so they were bra makers.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. There were the old ladies who sewed Playtex bras were the people who had the highest accuracy for this NASA space program to make the spacesuits that they needed. So I thought that was a really cool, kind of interesting thing, in that, like, probably Nerida has to stitch her own armor up after battle to make it, usable again.
I'm about to get rid of this bottom layer, and I know that this face is going to look super messed up. Yep, I was right. All right. Yeah, and that's for sure. That's one of the things that I worked on when I was considering character designs, or when we were considering character designs, is the way people's clothes are made. At least most of them is actually very important to who they are. I mean, if you look at Eintai, her clothing is always very, I don't want to call it prim, but it's tight, it's neat, it's exactly how it is supposed to be. And then if you look at Shale, every part of her armor is a different brown because it's a different leather from some other animal, and all the stitching on Shale's armor is extremely wide and crooked, and that is because Shale does it all herself. Mm-hmm. And Shale is a good leather worker, but not a good seamstress.
Right.
And, like Oriella's clothing, what of it there is made by Shale. Besides her little flimsy white dress, but her armored bits. So that's taken into consideration. And when I was designing Oriella, I was looking at it and thinking, okay, so I'm a naked Fey lady, and I don't care about anything, but I am traveling with basically a bodyguard who is a leather worker and a fur worker, so probably, I'll have some leather and fur in here somewhere. Mm-hmm. And Nerida's, actually, you can kind of see it in this panel. Nerida's armor is all about flexibility. It's why the sides are so open. And, the reasons for that will become apparent
she sacrifices
eventually.
A lot of protection.
Yes.
But she is
But then she can do that.
Mobile. And, most priests in D&D are stuffed into a suit of full plate or something. But
yep.
You'll see Nerida will be all over the battlefield throughout the whole comic.
Yep. And
and because she's
actively fought against wearing full plate when it was offered to her on multiple occasions. But then you also, like Shale's armor. Shale is also much more mobile because Shale's armor just has the abdomen straight up sliced out. And that was a choice.
That was a character choice.
That was a character choice that felt important enough that I left it when I was designing for the adaptation, because obviously, everybody's gone through several iterations in the time between when we started playing, when we started making threads, when we started theorizing threads, and when threads published. But that was just such an interesting character moment, because one of the first things Shale's player did was she got this leather armor and was shown the picture of the leather armor out of the source book and was like, all right, I'm a leather worker. I just cut the middle all out of it so that my midriff is showing because I'm super hot. And Ranger was DMing for us and just stared at her like she was insane, because she kind of was, and was like, okay, well, you lose 2 of your 3 armor bonus. And she's like, yeah, I'm fine with that. And so this party was full of a lot of glass cannons, some of which it was very
Also,
self-inflicted.
Don't accuse us of, inaccurate female armor.
Right?
The lady did it to herself.
Did it 100% to herself. And, there are a variety of female body types and armor designs and clothing designs, and I take a lot of pride in that. But yeah, Shale and Oriella, I mean, you take one look at them, and they're exactly what you would expect to see in a fantasy story, because they are wearing basically nothing. Shale less so than Oriella, but
also Oriella has less need of anything.
Yeah, Oriella has a freaking gigantic damage reduction because she's Fae, and she's a spellcaster, so she doesn't get up close and personal. And Shale is I don't want to say it this way, but crazy and stupid. Like, she does...
She's wild.
She's wild, yeah. Like, and you'll see it as she fights. Like, she doesn't have any sense of self-preservation. It's because she's a barbarian, Like, she goes out there and she does her thing, and if she dies with glory. Like, it's not a big deal to her, and it wasn't a big deal to her player. But then you have people like Nerida, who...
Hail to the glorious dead.
Yes.
Very much so.
And then you have people like Nerida, who are like, yeah, I need my armor to serve a purpose, and this is the purpose it needs to serve, and it does, and I'm good with it. And, I recognize that Nerida is not wearing pants, but the truth of the matter is that... As you saw in the very first page of the comic, the entire party, besides Alex, are not from Biss. They have either been sent here or dropped here, or by some foul magic ended up here. And Nerida is 7 feet tall. And people in Biss are not 7 feet tall.
They are not 7 feet tall.
They did not have pants.
They are small and malnourished.
They are small, malnourished people, and they did not have pants for a giant 7-foot-tall, muscular woman, which is why Nerida is not wearing pants. And, so yeah, I looked at her design, and I sometimes look at it and go, I'm going to come under fire for this at some point. But the truth of the matter is it's just...
They didn't have anything
for
Cheshire either.
No.
They are in clothing that does not fit them.
No, and you can see it. Like, in every panel Cheshire's in, their clothes are, like, hanging off of them. Their pants are tucked triply into their boots. Their shirts overlap each other in various ways and don't stay on straight, because Cheshire is too small. Cheshire is, like, 3.5 feet tall, and... the only thing that they would have had that would fit Cheshire is maybe Bissian children's clothing, which is not suited for tromping through the swamp. So they put her in the smallest adult uniformish they had, but also Cheshire is not proficient with any armor.
If they survive, they can get something made.
Right? Exactly. But Cheshire's not proficient with any armor, so they're like, well, okay, here's some shirts and some boots.
Maybe we'd want to double those up.
Go have fun, kids. Right? Yeah, and
yeah, they didn't have anything then.
No, Cheshire had literally nothing but
padded.
their instruments and their bag, and 2 things in the bag, which are both spoilers for later in the story. But yeah, Cheshire came to Biss with absolutely nothing, not even the clothes on their back. quite literally.
Yep. Everyone's unlucky to be there, like Alex says in the first page, but some people's entrance into Abyss were rougher than others.
Yeah. There's a reason that Cheshire is the way they are. And there's several reasons, in fact. And as they unfold, I think people will get more forgiving of Cheshire for being the way they are. I hope so. I was. And they're so cute. I can't help it. Like, how can you stay mad at that face?
Or not want to protect
that scared face.
So if you end up coming to Atomicon, we have some delightful stickers of Cheshire that we will be selling.
Yes, of Cheshire's very, very scared face. And we also have some exclusive stickers of the whole cast and of Alex and I think one of Shale and Oriella.
And a magnet.
And a magnet that's super duper rad.
Yeah.
And we may even have some other magnets that are in a slightly different format, but we shall see about that too. So yeah, character design is important, and I understand that sex appeal has a place in storytelling and character design, and I also understand that practicality has a place, and I think that I balanced them pretty well.
Yeah, we worked really hard at it.
We sure did. Frankly, a whole lot of our initial meetings were me bringing something to the table and Ranger going, okay, can you make it less hot? This includes most of our monster designs. And it's a long-standing rule that if you ask me to illustrate your D&D character, it doesn't fucking matter what your charisma bonus was. They're hot now.
Most people don't mind.
Most people do not mind. But like
the original Lowen.
Hey, shut up.
Still,
we don't need to talk about
him. She's like gave that to the player, and he was like, "Oh wow, looks great."
Right?
Didn't expect that.
Right?
He's so handsome.
So I drew an incredibly handsome young man who had like a handful of spikes and scales on him, I think, maybe. Didn't even have spikes, just scales. And he was like, oh, I was expecting him to be like lizard folk. Rad. He's super hot.
And then every time Vard tried to draw him again,
it didn't work.
It didn't look as good. Because I'm never drawing it again. That's it. It's done.
Yeah.
But that didn't end up being true.
No.
Drawn Lowen a fair bit now.
Yes. But you know what? I also wholly redesigned Lowen. Like, Lowen is the character who looks... Oh, well, that's not true. Oriella and then Lowen are the two characters who look the most completely different from their original designs. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but one of them is that Lowen's original design was just, like, ridiculously mega hot, and I drew him way more realistically than I draw most people for whatever obscure reason. So then whenever I drew his face again, it just didn't look like his face, and it took some coercing from the DM and the player, who the player was like, I mean, he's super hot, but like he doesn't look like a dragon, to make him look more dragony. And then I was like, well, I hate it, and I'm not drawing it anymore. And now I draw it for a kind of living, sort of. But actually, I like his new design, and it is...
It does. It looks good.
His new design, I think, it is good, and he's still pretty handsome, but he's non-conventionally handsome. Whereas his old design, he looked like an Abercrombie and Fitch model with scales.
Yeah.
And, whatever. Maybe that isn't what they look like in the source books. I don't know. Similarly, the very, very first design I came up with for Nerida was a bit different. She kind of evolved. I drew Nerida a lot just during the campaign, and she kind of evolved on her own. And then when we started actually making threads, I just was a much better character designer, so I was able to nail the strength and power and presence that she had better than I used to. She's still insanely hot, I think, anyway. Like, I wish she would crush me with her thighs, but her incredibly powerful thighs. But
I think she's uncomfortable, but not for the reason you'd think.
Right, 100%. But yeah, so I just realized that this leg doesn't make any sense, and that sometimes happens when you are going through the thumbnailing process.
Yeah, that's why art is a process, not
not a science.
Not a science.
It technically it is, but I've just never understood the science behind it. I just draw the things that look good, and then people go, "That looks good," and I go, "Okay."
Well, it's like not a. What I mostly want to say is it's not a. Jot it down and you're done.
Oh,
you gotta try and try
for sure.
and work
try
out.
and try. And the truth of the matter is that I tend to give things a little more flourish than they should have, which is very visually appealing, and I like it, and I think well, obviously visually appealing and it looks good are the same thing, but it's not always necessarily accurate. But so far nobody's bitched, and when they do, I'll be like, hey, draw your own fucking comic.
Yeah. Like that comic you were telling me about that just posts this chapter and goes, you.
Yes. There's an artist that I have followed for very many years who I adore and stalk a little bit. Like, not in the super creepy way, just in the regular internet stalking way.
Hit the button.
But he is very, very comfortable in his position as a very successful webcomic artist, and when he posted the most recent finished chapter, he updated his Twitter with a post that was like, "That's the end of chapter 12. Fuck you!" And then proceeded to draw a bunch of eldritch horror art, and it was interesting too.
But he did what he wanted for a while.
Yeah, but he did what he wanted for a while, and then every hiatus that they've taken has just been so unapologetic. Like, I used to read the comic as it updated, and one day I just opened it, and it's just a really scribbly drawing of the main character shrugging with her eyes crossed, and it just says, brain problems, and the post beneath it was like, I might rewrite this whole comic. I don't even know. Brain problems, bye, see you later. And then he was gone, just off the map for 4 months. And then came back and kept making comic, and then was like, I am going to redraw the whole comic, but I'm also going to continue it at the same time, and that didn't last long.
I imagine not.
He redrew the first 3 pages, I think, and then was like, yeah, I'm just going to make it better going forward, never mind.
I think that's...
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, hopefully in 4 years we'll look back at these first pages and go, yeah, we used to not be very good at this.
Oof, yeah,
but,
I'm sure.
I don't know that there will ever be time to go back and change things, because there's never time. There's never time for anything.
Let me tell you how many pages are up only because I'm up at 4 a.m. working on them the night before they're posted. There's not time to redo them, okay? There's not. And if anyone's like, oh, well, I can clearly see how this is a lower quality page than the previous one, I'll be like, hey, guess what? I had a stomach bug and was hospitalized and my organs are low-key failing. Go draw your own fucking comic. But
no one's ever said that to us.
No one has ever said that to us, actually. Yeah, all of our patrons and supporters have been ridiculously supportive. I know most of them in person, and in fact, one of them actually came in one time and saw me drawing with my arm in a cast and was like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, working on the comic. And he was just like, so I think people would probably understand if you put it off for a week. And I was like, no. Well, then I was hospitalized and we had to anyway. And everyone was like, oh, I hope you feel better. And I was like, whatever. Thanks. for being so reasonable
and nice
all the freaking time.
I appreciate it.
Right? I have very severe anxiety problems that make me not believe the best in humanity. And then I get on Twitter and I'm like, oh yeah, humanity is trash. But not the people who support us. They're super cool. And they put up with me zooming in and out of this picture endlessly all the time. And hey, you all will notice that I got a different mouse that doesn't squeak when I zoom in and out. Thank you, patrons.
Yeah.
It was like $5.
But thank you, patrons.
But thank you, patrons. Yeah, so actually all of our community has been really, really cool and super duper supportive and nice and patient. And I appreciate the patience because frankly, like, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, we sat down and we're like, this is a great story and we need to tell it. And like, I can draw and we can write. So the natural conclusion was webcomic. But it has been definitely, there have been a lot of unanticipated challenges and then a lot of anticipated challenges that were worse than were originally anticipated. And then there have been a lot of hurdles that, like, it never would have occurred to any of us.
Right.
Like dealing with Google for ads for our website
It's a nightmare.
Is a nightmare, an unmitigated nightmare. I'm not even the one who's responsible for it, but just like every time the word Google leaves Ranger's lips anymore, my automatic response is, I'm sorry. Is there something I can do? Because they are gonna like shut down our YouTube channel if I keep talking about them badly, but like just
they're stupid poopy doo-doo heads.
Yes, suffice to say they don't really care about us and our very small.
You don't have a million views a day, they don't care about you.
Yeah, it literally isn't it 1 million views a day to get technical support or something like that.
No, it's a large enough number for them to give you access to it. They don't even say.
They don't even say what it is. Yeah, it really is just crazy, and then like. Ads, our Google ads just disappeared from the website for like
3 weeks.
3 weeks, and we had no idea why. And then they just showed back up, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, your ads.txt file was wrong."
But also, you have to fix it. But sometime within the next month, our crawler will
decide if it's fixed or not.
Yeah.
But they didn't specify how to fix it. So yeah, there's so much weird stuff that like.
But see, the thing is it hadn't changed.
Yeah, I wish I understood.
We're
But
hitting our month mark and it's still, I don't know. Google ads are the worst.
It's very frustrating. And then we tried to go through this small ad company that was like exclusively a webcomic group. And they were like, yeah, we're great for like starting up comics because, we'll get
it's packaged with a webcomic starter creation kit. That I used to have the tools to build the website.
And they were like, but you don't have enough views to justify us
once
advertising.
You have 1 million users. When you have 1 million users, call us back.
And I'm like, well, then why are you a startup package? I don't understand. So stuff like that is just really weird, and it's stuff that you would never anticipate. And we didn't anticipate that. I had no idea how any of this shit worked. I have no idea how this shit works anyway. I just go to Ranger and I send him a keyboard smashed email and say, this is the page. Please do the witchy shit that makes people be able to see it on the internet. Because that's all I got.
And there are several features. Like there is a for visually impaired people, there is a function that describes everything that's going on.
Yes.
That I type out every day or every time we post. But I don't know if anyone's using that, but I figure we should do it.
If somebody's using it, it's almost certainly my brother. My brother is blind, for those who do not know, but he really likes D&D. And it's unfortunate because he doesn't really get to play and he doesn't have a group to play with and he lives all the way in New York and yada yada. But so he really likes D&D and he used to enjoy my art when he was sober. And so anyway, he lost his sight at 19, and he moved to New York, where they have a much better like support system for people who are visually impaired. But he's been gone for several years, and so we have since started up Threads, and he was really excited to hear that I was doing like an actual, possibly for a living, big project with my art, and then he found out it was like fantasy and D&D based, and like his favorite movies in the world are Lord of the Rings, and like he super loves fantasy stuff. He named his car the Druid Plow.
Wow.
Yeah. There's actually a really funny story about that terrible old car. So one of the last things he did before he lost his sight was he actually rolled that car because he fell asleep driving across the state and just absolutely trashed it. Like he twisted the axles in 2 different directions, and so then, like a couple months after that, after the car was totaled, he started losing his vision and then was diagnosed with this really rare hereditary disease that is what cost him his vision. And so they turned in the plates, and the car just was left sitting on my mom's lot for the longest time. Well, the DMV, okay, mind you, it took them 3 years to realize there were back taxes owed on the car, because at some point they lost the paperwork where they had turned in the plates, and they just suddenly looked at it and were like, this car owes taxes and there's no insurance on it, and it can't be on the road. And so they sent a police officer a report with a description of the car, and he drove directly to my mom's house. He looked at the car, he's like, white Toyota with black duct tape stripes. Oh yeah, I know this car, right? Coincidentally, not coincidentally, but almost certainly, because my brother had been pulled over many, many times in the county. And he drove right to my mom's house and like knocked on her door and was like, "So like, what happened? Why haven't you been paying the insurance on this car?" And she's like, "I turned in the plates 3 years ago." And he's like, "Cool story. Please take this to a junkyard where other police won't see it." Because the DMV's incompetent. I'm going to just file this one away. But yeah, it's like...
most of South Carolina's government is incompetent.
Yeah, it is. This is a true story. But yeah, it's like it was this ugly old beaten up white Toyota, and he made racing stripes for it out of black duct tape and wrote on the side of it in black duct tape, "The Druid Plow." So literally the minute it showed up on this cop's desk,
he's like, "I know that one."
He's like, "Oh, I know that one. That's the kid who thinks he's a wizard." And so I used to work at GameStop.
Do you think your brother's ever going to listen to these streams?
I don't know, but if he does, frankly, most of the shit he probably won't remember, and the stuff he does, he'll probably think is funny. Because
shout out to you.
Yep. I told him this story. I was actually mortified by this story, but I told it to him when I got home, and he thought it was hysterical. Because he went through a period where he would go biking through our hometown in these like teeny tiny like Victoria's Secret cutoff sweatpants shorts.
Wow.
That he got from, I guess, one of his girlfriends. I don't know, but apparently they were very comfortable. But so he would go biking through the town in those and a big gray Gandalf cosplay hat.
Brad.
And I used to work at GameStop, like a town over. And this one kid came in and was like, "Man, I swear I know you. I recognize your face." I was like, "Well, dude, I've worked here for like 3 years." And he's like, "No, it's something else." And I'm like panicking at this point because I'm like, "Oh God, please tell me he doesn't know me because of someone from my family." And he just goes, "Your brother's the kid who thinks he's a wizard." I was like, he's like, Do you live in, our town?" And I'm like, yeah, that's me. So I went home and I told my brother this story, and he thought it was quite hysterical, and went out and took his wizard pipe and went and smoked and laughed about it, and then called all his friends and laughed about it. And I was like, Cool
guy.
Awesome. Yay. And then my coworkers would occasionally bring me like the jailbird papers and be like, "Is this your brother?" And I'm like, "Nope." Sure isn't. But yeah.
Just looks like him and acts like him.
Just looks.
Fine.
They're like, he's got a wizard hat on. No, he doesn't. But yeah, so he's super into fantasy stuff, and he would really like the comic, I think. And so if anyone is using it, it's probably him, because he said that he wanted to read it, and I told him, well, we have like transcriptions that you can have your computer read to you, and you can follow the story, and like when we visit, I can give you details or yada yada, and I'm gonna be seeing him this November, and that should be very interesting. His baby is due in no, I'm seeing him in December. His baby is due in November. They have not decided on a name yet, but I hope they will by the time the baby gets here. But yeah, so
Speaking of, my dad was no name Mendenhall on his birth certificate because they didn't choose a name for him, and so the doctor put no name on there, or the nurse or whoever. And so then they named him. They named him Arthur John Mendenhall. When he went to go get a passport, though, they never told him about this. He got his birth certificate, so you can prove you're a citizen. And when they gave him the copy of the birth certificate, it said no name Mendenhall. He's like, what?
Well, they didn't get that changed, eh?
They didn't get that changed.
Cool story.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Right?
Oh, hey, no name.
Right? Okay, so I believe, like, I'm sure my kid is going to go through high school and be like, gee, Mom, thanks for giving me this super witchy name. Thanks a lot. Like,
Look, Aragorn better appreciate his name.
Right, because
guess what? That's a privilege.
That is a privilege. I saw this delightful meme that was this, well, I guess it wasn't a meme, it was a post that's like, it's like this kid, and he's talking to his mom, and he's like, why is our cousin's name what it is? And she's like, well, because your aunt really likes roses. And she's like, okay, well, why is my name what it is? And she's like, shut up, Alistair, don't worry about it. And
so my dad has this joke that he loves, and it's pretty funny, but he loves this joke. So there's this boy talking to his dad, and they're Native Americans.
Okay.
And he looks at his dad and he says, "So, Dad."
Oh gosh, I think my dad has told me this joke.
He told you this joke too.
I think so. All right, keep talking, but I think I know where this joke is headed.
Well, anyway,
because it's also one of my dad's favorites.
So he says, "Dad, you when we were born, how do you name us?" He says, "Well, I look out the window and I see the first thing that inspires me or that I see." He says, "Oh, so that's why Soaring Eagle is named that." He says, "Yes, I had hoped that he would be strong and mighty like the soaring eagle, and I saw that when he was born." And he says, "So why is my sister named Proud Buffalo?" "Oh, because I saw the proud buffalo when she was born, and I hoped she would be strong and steadfast for our tribe and her family." He says, "Oh, well, that's really cool, Dad." He says, "Well, why do you ask, pooping dog?"
Yep. That's, yeah, oh wow, those lips are way wrong. Yeah, that is 100% one of my dad's all-time favorite jokes.
Yeah. It's like, my kid better appreciate the name they get.
Right?
They probably won't.
No. Charmander Sue Bulbasaur.
Charizard Chew Bulbamander the Third. That's just our code name.
Oh, okay.
Kid's totally going to be named Aragorn.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, and it's really funny because I was talking to my mom the other day, and she was like, yeah, they haven't picked a name for the baby yet. And I'm like, I don't even have a baby yet, and I already know the first and middle name of my female and male children.
So, Kristen Lange says, "Hey, guys.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us."
Yeah. We're not talking about baby names.
Not at all.
Nope. We're talking about art and relevant things.
we wander topics a little bit.
It's just a
And
tiny,
Langy says,
tiny
baby.
bit. Baby or die, Ranger. Baby or die.
I know.
Baby or die, and my brother is having a baby before me.
Is that really surprising?
No, it's not. But
aw, Kristen Langy says, thanks for streaming. Baby!
Well, thanks for watching. Also, babies. I maybe have an Amazon wish list with hundreds of dollars worth of baby stuff on it. And it maybe one day will be sent to my family and be like, give me all this shit because I'm having a baby. And I hope that day is soon. And it probably won't be. But I'm very sad.
But yes, Kristen, we are glad that there are people who enjoy our streams.
Yes.
We wish there were more.
Yes. And hopefully one day there will be. And I just don't need to draw all that. Trying to, keep things interesting and lighthearted, and I apologize because I am wandering topics more than usual, but I am super duper tired, guys.
Kristen Langy says, I'm getting ready to crochet a baby blanket. Is it for me? So I feel you, Bard.
Right? It's the worst.
That was the last gift I got from my grandmother before she died. She made a baby blanket
We're making sad.
for me. Well, I guess she made a bunch of them and gave one to me. But she was actually a really cool lady. She was mostly blind, but she would still tie baby quilts by hand, by feel.
Muscle memory.
I think she had a guide pattern too. But then she, as a blind 99-year-old woman, she donated something like, I don't remember how many. It was some gigantic number, like 50 or 80 baby blankets to her local hospital, and so they wrote a newspaper article about her. Because they were like, oh my gosh, this ancient blind woman just gave us a bunch of beautiful baby blankets.
Your grandma's really cool, and my grandmas are mean and drunk.
Kristen Langy asks, Bard, gonna name your baby Cheshire?
No, I am not. I am going to name my baby, if it is a girl, Athena Marcel, and if it is a boy, either Augustine Maddox or Alastair Maddox.
Shut up, Alastair.
Right?
Kristen Langy says, she's my hero. I imagine she's talking about my grandma. She's a nice lady.
She could have been talking about Cheshire. Cheshire's no one's hero. If I named my kid Cheshire, I feel like I would be setting them up for a really
not
horrible...
ever feeling adequate.
Yeah, for a really horrible, first half of their life, and then fame that would probably corrupt them. Cheshire has a lot of problems.
She's #relatable.
Yes. Speaking as a person who struggles with, I think, not the exact same mental illnesses Cheshire has, but some of them, Cheshire and I understand them on a deep level. That's why I'm very good at writing them. I had a very good friend who was in the hospital, and I gave them my old adventure logs from when we started playing the campaign, which was basically Cheshire's perspective of the campaign to read, to occupy their time while they were in the hospital. And they were like, man, I really, really relate to this character. I super love them. And I was like, looking at this super mentally ill character and looking at my friend who was like, I'm not mentally ill. And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, they've since gotten help and are in a much better place, and I'm so happy for them. But yeah, Cheshire, I think personally that Cheshire is one of the most relatable characters, because nobody wants to be the person who in the adventuring party would screw everything up because they're just a regular person and they're not good at adventuring, but everyone kind of is. Like, except for that one dude in Utah who killed a mountain lion with his bare hands, and this one guy that my mom is an accountant, and she does taxes for people, obviously, because that's what accountants do. Well, one of her clients just didn't come in one year, and she thought maybe he went to somewhere else. But the next year he came in, and he had these crazy scars all over his arm. And, she asked him what happened, and he was like, well, the reason I didn't come in last year was because I spent a long time in intensive care and physical therapy, and just the tax stuff kind of got away from me because I was mowing one of my properties, and the riding mower he was on flipped over and rolled onto him.
Wow.
And he had to push it off of him out of this ditch, and it just shredded his arm. And he was 3 miles from his house, and he looked at his arm and saw how much he was bleeding and realized he would bleed out if he didn't do something to slow the bleeding down, and had no way to tourniquet it. So he reached into his own arm, and he grabbed his veins, and he held them shut while he walked 3 miles back to his home, and then called emergency services from his home phone.
Wow. Well, that man wins,
Right? Like
tough man.
Right? What
forever.
in the fricking world? So, besides people like him and people who grapple mountain lions to death because...
the guy that got his arm pinned and waited for 3 days for help and realized no help was coming and cut his own arm off.
Yeah. So, there are a handful of people who would be okay if they were suddenly thrust into an adventuring world. But you know what? Cheshire wasn't one of them, and most of us aren't.
Nerida has a cute nose, though.
Nerida does have a cute nose. Nerida has a fabulous nose. And very pretty eyes. And,
yeah, she does.
Unfortunately, I am currently drawing her face at my least favorite angle at which to draw faces. And it's like one of the...
common one?
Yes.
Because that's like the angle of two people facing each other.
Yeah. We're going to come back to these lips. But, yeah, so...
Lips.
Oh, I see I have been we're going to come back to this on a lot of parts of this picture, and now I have to go back to at least one of them. Shit! We're going to work on some hair.
Hair's good.
Yeah, so, I think Cheshire's relatable, and I also think Cheshire's adorable, and, I love them so much. But I'm not going to name my kid after them, because one day my kid is going to grow up and read this comic and be like, you named me after I fucked up the character?
Thanks, Mom.
Right? I'm going to be like, shut up.
Well, I'm going to watch Lord of the Rings with my kid and be like, I named you after that.
And he's going to be like, cool!
Cool!
Right? Well, you know...
If you name your kid Alistair, though, are you going to get sad every time you look at him?
No, because I wanted to name my kid Alistair before Alistair from Dragon Age.
I know, but are you still going to look at him and
I
get
don't
sad?
know. That's why I came up with Augustine as an alternative. Because originally it was going to be Augustus, but Augustus Maddox is I feel like the second half of those names sound too similar to each other. And Augustine is still a really good name.
Augustine is a good name. And that way he's not a little emperor.
Right? And so, there's that. But yeah, Athena Marcel is a 100% witch name.
It's pretty, though. But
it's very pretty. And you know what? Amazon and Facebook already think I'm a witch. And frankly, I'm starting to think I might be a witch. So, whatever. My kid can have a witch name and be happy. Because my kid is going to come off the tit playing D&D and have a very active imagination and probably hopefully be creative and not be born with a science brain, because then I won't be able to help them with anything. Like my mom...
This is the left brain. I am the left brain.
Right? I am the right brain. I do like Oreos and pussy in that order. So my mom has a super duper science brain. She is a machine with numbers. And she is really good at math, and she is really good at science, and she's really good at accounting and all of these other very sciencey things, and I am really good at English and art. And my mom is also good at English. She has a very extensive and formal education, but she does not art, and so oftentimes, in fact, more times than I care to recount, we came to tears, scream fighting at each other as she was trying to teach me what she felt was an extremely easy concept that would be an extremely easy concept for a left-brained person. That was not an extremely easy concept for me, and I could not wrap my brain around it. And then she would come by and be like, okay, you have 10 minutes to get this homework done. I've explained it to you 4 times. And I'd be like, okay, fine. And then she'd come by and I'd be doodling on my homework sheet. And she'd be like, what are you doing? And I'm like, it helps me remember. And it did. But it didn't help me get my homework done within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a real struggle for a while there.
Really struggling with one of my kids. It took them an hour to do their homework, and then I figured out give them something they want, but they can only have after they homework, and remind them about it. 10 minutes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I was not so easily swayed. I was an incredibly difficult child, so shout out to my mom, because she's a great mom and a super cool person, and I wouldn't have blamed her if she'd have strangled me to death as a kid. Like, oh my gosh, I just straight up know what a difficult child I was, and turns out I was not the most difficult child, but she sure thought I was gonna be. But yeah, she was actually a really incredibly good teacher, and all my other siblings learned very well and very easily, and I just didn't, because I just couldn't. I couldn't science brain, and I still couldn't even in college. And she just kept telling me, like, yeah, this stuff was hard for me when I was young too, but like, one day the light's gonna go off and it's gonna make sense. To this day, the light's not on. Like, I mean, obviously I can do basic math, but like, I Christmas treed my SAT and got put in advanced trigonometry. And on day 1 of that class, I got about halfway through the lecture, and I stood up and was like,
I'm in danger.
I'm in danger. And I straight up told my teacher after class, like, yeah, either I got put in the wrong class or, like, you are an alien. I'm going to go talk to my advisor. And I was like, can you please put me in remedial math? And they were like, but your SAT scores, I mean, you're a freaking genius. I was like,
Does me not represent me?
Right? I was like, so here's the thing. The SAT is multiple choice. I am good at semi-deductive reasoning. And I may have gotten a super high SAT score, but I am not a genius. I made a really pretty pattern on that bubble test with my answers.
Well, you know what? Sometimes it just doesn't matter. On the GRE, I did better than 91% of, or not the GRE, the graduate record exam for grad school. Did better than 91% of people on the verbal reasoning part of the exam. But I was utterly average on the quantitative reasoning part. And I think people should look at I did better than 91% of people.
Right? Well,
especially for the profession I wanted. But they were like, you just didn't excel in the quantitative. And I'm like, so what? That's what calculators and books to remind you how to do it are for.
Right. Well, you know what's really interesting? And this is a fact that, oh man, Anduin would look cool if he was like a pitchfork trident. Anyway, sorry. Well, what's actually quite interesting about standardized bubble tests and stuff like that, like the SATs and the standardized tests you have to take every year for school, is that the man who invented them literally told the people he presented them to. These are far too crude and generalized to be used to measure someone's level of education. They were literally only supposed to be like a super basic, if you absolutely have to thing to make sure somebody was qualified enough to leave school to become a minor.
Yeah, well,
and he was
that
like,
bears out because I was talking to a lady who was in charge of admissions for the history department, and she said, "Oh yeah, it's just an easy way to disqualify people without having to think about it. Because what does the quantitative reasoning matter for a history major? It doesn't. But if you do poorly, they can just throw your application out without having to read the whole thing."
Yep. And that's the thing, is that like the guy who frickin' made them was like, don't use these as a standard of people's intelligence or education. And then they got put in the mainstream school as the standard of your intelligence and education.
Yeah, I saw a thing that said, America, should we put another standardized test in our education? And then Finland and a bunch of other countries were like, no. In fact, we found that these are totally unhelpful, and that raising teacher salary and respect for teachers is the best thing for the classroom. And then America goes, oh, okay, so we better add 2 then.
Yeah, basically.
Right?
Like, I know a couple of people who are teachers now, and I'm like, wow, I think you might be the only people who work more than I do for less money than I make. I mean, it's not.
So, as an interesting note, I watched an episode of Forged in Fire today, and they had to make a pavis, which is a pole arm very similar to a trident, but instead of curved, there are 3. It's a big pike and then 2 little pike heads, but very similar to the trident that you're drawing, right? And that raised fuller right there, one guy had one and one guy didn't. And the guy who didn't, his just bent when it went to hit heavy armor, and they stabbed into heavy armor. And they said that was why, because that raised fuller, they had a special name for it that I can't remember this very moment, but is essentially a raised fuller. Really gives that stabbing point, the strength to resist equally strong metal that it's trying to push into. And so I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I gotta say,
I watched it in action.
I put a lot of thought into, obviously, every design, and so did you as our DM and thus creative director and etc. But like, watching Forged in Fire and understanding and coming to understand the mechanics of blacksmithing and the way that steels interact with one another, and what the purpose of some things on some weapons versus others are, and seeing how and why things fail, very much informed all of my weapon design. Particularly when you look at like Lowen's axe, you'll notice, well, you might notice, you might not, I don't know. I try to make it look like this way, but you might notice that his axe does not have anywhere near the shine or finish that Nerida's Trident or Shale's Pike do, because Nerida's Trident and Shale's Pike are both masterwork weapons that are like ancient and important or whatever. Like, Shale's is like the pride of her tribe. But Lowen just made his axes himself. And he was an inexperienced blacksmith when he made them. And so they're not super duper polished. And I would never have thought about that if I hadn't seen the difference between a master smith's blade and something that someone kicked out with 3 years of experience, and it's a very interesting show, and it's quite cool. And it's funny because watching Forged in Fire, so I don't want to admit to the whole internet that I like reality competition TV shows, but like, I was obsessed with MasterChef for a long time. And Forged in Fire, there is so much about it that is so incredibly similar to MasterChef, but like, it's weapons. that when I first started watching it, I was just waiting for Gordon Ramsay to come out and like throw somebody's knife on the ground and tell
It's
them.
not very good, is it?
And tell them it's burnt, you idiot.
Well, they literally do.
Because they burn metal.
Yeah, they burn metal in coal forges sometimes.
Yep.
Watch that today too.
And so it's just really funny because I was super, super into MasterChef, and I liked Hell's Kitchen for the first few seasons, but then it just got way out of hand. But yeah, so I came to really like some reality competition shows, mostly because I was obsessed with Gordon Ramsay, but then because Forged in Fire was really interesting, and now I just have to say that I enjoy the genre. But, you know, whatever. It's cool. It's...
Man, if I had time and money, I wanted to learn how to do that.
Right?
Unfortunately, it's very expensive and also very time-consuming.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that all those dudes rush to compete for $10,000, because they're like, I want to shop.
Right.
And one guy's like, first thing I'm going to do if I win Forged in Fire Champion and I get $10,000, I'm going to buy a power hammer like they have right here. And it's like, it really puts into perspective how much the equipment costs.
Right. And how in more than one episode, and in fact more than 5 or 10 episodes, the people who do have power hammers, it breaks while they're working on it. It's very common.
Yep. All right. This is a very juicy calf. I'm going to bring it in a little. Need to be quite so.
Nerida does have fine legs.
She does. And very long legs.
Yes.
Very long, awkward legs. But yeah, so Forged in Fire is cool, and MasterChef is really good.
I've been watching MasterChef Junior with the kids.
MasterChef Junior is fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty clear Gordon Ramsay loves children.
Oh yeah, for sure. But the truth of the matter is that like, yeah, Gordon Ramsay has this reputation and this TV personality of being an absolute hard ass who's like super angry all the time.
But people who've messed up their own restaurants kind of deserve it.
Exactly, right? Like, whenever he goes into a restaurant or a place or a competition or wherever where somebody's genuinely working hard and they're fighting against the odds, like, he's super cool to them, and he's a really reasonable person. And like, there was this one MasterChef competitor who was blind, and you could tell he was always really impressed with her work, but this one episode was about pies. And pies are incredibly difficult to get right because pastry crust is the fucking devil.
To watch it perfectly.
You have to, and so much of it is visual, you know, and it has to be perfectly timed, and it has to sound right, and it has to be perfectly flaky, and yada yada. Well, so this blind girl presents her pie, and she's like on the verge of tears because she has no idea if it's good or not. Well, he cuts into it, and he takes the piece out, and he turns it over, and he looks at it, and he scrapes the fork along the pie crust so she can hear how perfectly flaky and the exact right it is. And like, she just like bursts into tears, and he goes over and like hugs her, and he's like, "You've done an amazing job." And, you know, even if you watch like some of his shows, like the F Word, which is one of his kind of more boring shows, because it's like really low-key British television, but it has a lot to do with his home life, and like watching him interact with his kids, like the guy's a cool dude, and he's nice to people who aren't asshats. But like,
but if you are,
the truth of the matter is, if you're an asshat, you don't deserve any better than to have 2 pieces of bread put on either side of you and be called an idiot sandwich.
I mean, maybe not.
You know, I mean, because I have straight up watched every single episode of Hotel Hell and Kitchen Nightmares and all that jazz, and, you know, the whole reason he quit doing Kitchen Nightmares was because he went to this resort loft place that was a ski resort, and the food was terrible and borderline rotten, and the conditions were awful, and it was all bought in and frozen, and they were charging prices that Gordon Ramsay didn't charge at his friggin' 3 Michelin star restaurants. And the owner straight up looked at him and told him, well, duh, I do that. I have no competition. I can do whatever I want. And he was
Pretty
like, yeah, I'm done. I'm
done.
absolutely done. Like, this man just openly admitted to deliberately taking advantage of people because they have no other option because they're stuck skiing in the frickin' mountains at his lodge. Fuck this guy.
Yeah. I mean, those people are pretty much the worst.
Yeah. And, you know, I've also seen people who, like, the minute he walks in, they're like, well, fuck him. He's just going to spit out anything I eat. But I have seen him eat entire plates of food on Kitchen Nightmares because sometimes, especially the British show, he'd go in and it was just the owner was struggling because they didn't understand the business side of it or because they were understaffed or because they overworked themselves. And he's like, your food's delicious. You're struggling because you don't sleep at night. You know, like...
I saw one, I haven't seen hardly any of them, but I saw one where he went in and the food was very good, but horribly presented and not well cared for.
Mm-hmm.
And that was their big problem. And he ate it and he's like, I was not expecting to like this, but I love it.
So, get your shit together, guys.
Clean up your kitchen.
Yep.
And the lady was like, oh my, Gordon Ramsay said my food is good.
Was it a Jamaican lady?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that episode. And, like, he ate those jerk chicken wings and was like, these are incredibly good, and then found out that they're, like, 3 times fried because she does everything herself and she had to, like, fry them again to heat them up. And he was like, so your food is really good, but you're exhausted, and your kitchen is a disaster because your douchebag sons or whoever it was who was working for her aren't pulling their weight, you know? And I mean, he will look at what the actual problem is. He doesn't just go in and insult people contrary to popular belief.
But getting told hard truths feels insulting to some people.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know a single person who could take Gordon Ramsay's criticism to their face and not get flustered.
But he's very blunt.
I mean, I would get flustered
on MasterChef Junior,
in a very different way.
He's very nice to these kids, but if it's not good, he'll tell them that was not well done.
Yeah,
it's a shame.
And
you can tell they feel terrible.
Yep. You can tell he does not want to crush that little kid who's struggling to redo his mashed potatoes. You know.
But he's also the first one to go over to someone crying and say what's wrong, and they'll say what's wrong, and he'll
be like, it's okay, calm down, you know, you do this, that.
This one girl was freaking out about mashed potatoes, and she was sobbing.
Yep. And
she said, they're too salty. And once they're too salty, you have to start over, and there wasn't time, right?
Yep.
But he tasted them, and he said, well, dear, what you've done is you've tasted the end of the spoon you used to salt it with, and so you got a big mouthful of salt. Your potatoes are fine, dear.
Yep. And that's the thing is, like, he's not a bad dude, and frankly,
his epic rap battle of history is hilarious too.
Yes. He's pretty rad, and I would love to be emotionally and physically dominated. But
they were both very good.
Yep. And she only won because they focused so hard on his hard TV personality. And you know, everything's good if you add enough butter.
Which is fair, though, with all of his really mean segments.
Yep.
But you know, there is more to Gordon Ramsay. Like, he smiles a lot in MasterChef Junior.
He sure does, yeah. And, you know, even in regular MasterChef, I mean, like, he'll spit something out at someone's feet if it's disgusting, but he is also the first person to give constructive criticism, because that's what he's about, and people think that he's just this angry dude who was trained by angry French chefs, and so he screams at people, and part of that is true. But also, like, I watched a series that he did where he worked with prisoners to teach them, like, life skills and cooking and...
Well, and, you know, the man's willing to learn.
Yeah, and it was a very interesting and difficult experience for him because he was like, how am I supposed to teach people to cook if they can't have knives?
Right. I saw a
Guys.
really interesting segment with him where he was in a competition with a bunch of Malaysian women, and they had to make something that he'd made before and he knew how to make, but he watched them and they were all doing it differently than him.
And he's like, well, if all these old Malaysian ladies do this Malaysian dish differently than I do, probably something was up there.
Yep, and so he asked, and they told him, and he was like, "Oh, that's a really good idea."
Yep.
You know, he's not.
No, the man loves food.
Yeah.
And he respects it, and he respects people who do it well, and he doesn't respect people who treat it like a cash cow
or who are disrespectful themselves.
Who are disrespectful to him or his profession or whatever. Yeah. Well, guys, I'm gonna try to squeeze these last 35 minutes of this stream out, but it might not be happening because like my hand really hurts and I'm very tired. But we'll see how far we get.
Well, we have one religious viewer, so shout out to you who stayed the whole time.
Yes, thank you. And that's not how you draw a toenail. I don't need to draw a toenail because there's going to be water there. Never mind. Yeah, not on the top of my game right now. But yeah, Gordon Ramsay's a cool dude, and people hate him unnecessarily. And also, I think it's kind of sexy when he's mad.
Being physically and
emotionally dominated by Gordon Ramsay. That's how I want to die. That or Countess Eintai, man. Okay, so we have some
narrators.
Some narratosies. I think this foot needs to actually come down a little bit further, because otherwise she's got some cankles going on that we just can't see, which is not necessarily a bad thing. She does actually just really have thick ankles, but
I wouldn't say she has cankles.
No. Because cankles sounds insulting. Thick ankles. Yeah.
Cankles sounds like something that happens when you get, like, gout plus.
Oof. That's awful. Oh, goodness. My face hurts from talking. If anyone
Google
has any
says
questions,
a cankle is just an unusually thick or stout ankle.
Yep. Because it's calf meeting ankle without the definition of the ankle, so that's why it's cankles.
Oh, Google. Number one question people ask, can you get rid of cankles?
Probably. Probably sometimes not. But, you know, I don't know. Some are caused by genetic stuff, and some are caused by messing up your legs with shoes. Cough, cough. And some are caused by, like, obesity. Those you could probably get rid of. But it just kind of depends on why you have cankles, I guess.
Indeed.
And she's got super muscular thighs. We're going to get some, like, definition lined in here.
Yeah, I think Narita was one of the strongest characters.
Yeah.
She's a strong lady.
She is. She is. She's a strong, handsome woman.
Yes, high strength, high charisma. Not a bad combination.
No. And Gigi's like, it is if there are nymphs around. My poor paladin, he just really wants a monogamous relationship, but he has like a 20-something charisma, and they're rescuing nymphs left and right, and no one else in the party even has a 16. So he gets hit on a lot. But he's a sweetie who's in love with a bad person. It's okay.
She's like, I don't want to talk about it.
It's fine, Gigi. We won't sell you out on the internet. We totally will. If Threads takes off and we finish the story, I would absolutely sell you out on the internet for another comic. Because you'd make a wonderful comic.
Yeah.
And he's such a sweet, wonderful...
So would My Name is Love.
That one.
That's probably the moneymaker right
That's
there.
the one I want to do. Because, man, do I want to make erotic comics for a living.
That's why we didn't name our partnership corporation after Threads of Fates, because we hope that it'll be a thing that we can do more.
Yes. Because they're actually, and interestingly, many of our campaigns have tied in together into this story, usually only in small ways, but I love the idea of some side comics that have tie-ins or even individual, largely relevant comics. I mean, I could happily illustrate comics for the rest of my freaking life, but I cannot happily eat ramen for the rest of my life, so they need to be successful.
You can't happily eat ramen.
No, I can't. Maybe if you cover it in pizza stuff and do this trailer park lasagna thing.
That looked really good.
It looked kind of good, but also it makes my heart
trashy,
hurt. Yeah. Both because just looking at it makes my arteries clog, and because looking at it makes me sad because I don't want that to be my future.
But suffice to say, we work hard for you guys, and we will work as long as you guys are interested.
Yes, and it only goes up from here, in my opinion. Like, you guys are still in like the little super baby stages of like, this is the first ever battle. Like, this was literally our first encounter. I mean, there's so much more to...
Indeed, and we did...
to explore and
we did prologue stuff that would be super interesting to add in, and...
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's a great story, and there's a lot of it. There's going to be more.
Yes. Okay, those are at a better angle.
So, we're excited. That's why we spent a lot of our own money on it.
Yes, and why I'm totally cool with working 2 full-time jobs, because I want one of them to succeed so bad.
Really got unlucky with what happened on our launch time.
Yes. And the low-key organ failure. Got a little unlucky with that.
Who'd have figured that in the first 4 months of the comic you'd have hurt your arm and had to go to the hospital and have a surgery and
find out that the reason all these things happened is because my organs aren't working right. Yay!
Yeah, right.
Don't worry, guys. I don't think I'm gonna die. But
I think the root of the problem has finally been found.
Yes.
And taken care of.
Yes. So, provided that the treatment that I'm on right now continues to work upwards, which it seems to be doing, hopefully, soon I'll be a fully functional human being again. Well, I mean, like, the partially functional human being I was before.
Yep.
As fully functional as any mentally ill artist can be. I haven't, like, cut off my ear yet, but...
You also don't scream and cry on Twitter.
No, I don't. I don't scream and cry on Twitter. I just scream and cry at my friends.
Still a step up.
Yep. Because scream crying on Twitter is typically done for attention. Scream crying at your friends is done because you're desperate and you have invasive thoughts that you can't control. So yeah, I mean, this Narita is mostly done besides her hands that I don't want to do because they're fiddly details that are difficult to do when my hand is really sore.
Yeah, if you're feeling sore, we can end it a little early today. And
then there's some, like, gross battle stuff gonna happen too. Yeah, so... guys, I think I'm cooked. So thank you all so much for watching and joining us. And if anyone has any questions, ask now. And if you are so inclined to continue to support us so that we eat things other than ramen, we have our PayPal where you can support us directly, or our Patreon where you can support us for sweet monthly rewards. And also join us at Atomicon because that's going to be exciting and we're really happy to get the chance to meet our fans.
Or even if you can't, It's going to be a great time to get people interested in the Patreon
Yes,
or
'cause
become
they
a
will-
patron yourself.
The week, I believe, of
Yeah.
Atomicon, we will be giving away the Atomicon exclusive pin
Yes.
if you become a patron. Yes. So if you don't have the chance to travel to South Carolina or have the money to go to Atomicon, hey, spend that whatever $50 you would spend for your ticket on like several months worth of pledges, right? And get your pin. So yeah.
Kristen Lange says, "What if I want to name my kid after Alex?"
Then you are naming your kid after an awesome person, and they are destined to have a terrible life.
But they will be awesome.
Yes, they will be super awesome. But I'm just gonna say,
If you name your kid Alex,
if you name your kid Alex,
he's gonna be the kid that
your
beats
kid's
up bullies
face
in
will
the
basically
schoolyard.
always look like this.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he'll be the kid that beats up bullies in the schoolyard, but has a broken nose constantly.
Yes, because hey, beating up bullies in the schoolyard is the right thing to do usually.
Or sometimes.
Okay, sure, sometimes.
Usually the right thing to do, if there are any children listening to this, namely mine, is to go get a teacher.
Oh yeah, I've recently been informed that my niece and nephew listen to these streams, and so don't fight at school unless you really, really have to, and they deserve it. But yeah, if you name your kid after Alex, their perpetual facial expression from birth to death will be "I fucking hate everybody," and they will be gray by the time they're 20, but they'll be super rad.
Kristen Lange says, "I want my son's middle name to be Alexander because I love Alex."
I love Alex too, and I approve of this message and this choice. And yeah, this is last week's page if anyone hasn't seen it. Go check it out on the website. So thank you all for joining us, and tatty bye for now. I think I'm going to go sleep. And we love you, and appreciate all your support, and
See you in 2 weeks.
see you in 2 weeks. Yeah, please, somebody stop it.